In Flanders once there dwelt a company of young folk steeped in foolish revelry, who haunted brothels, feasts, and games of chance, and to the harp and lute they used to dance, and they would cast at dice both day and night, and also eat and drink beyond their night, and in the devil's temple in this evil manner make sacrifices to the devil by their abominable superfluity. They swore so loudly and so damnably, it was a grisly thing to hear them swear. They rent our blessed Saviour's body there, and dancing girls would come, graceful and slender, and after them fruit wenches, young and tender, singers with harps, bawds, and confectioners, that are the very devil's officers, to kindle and fan the fire of lechery that is so near aligned to gluttony. Now these three rioters, of whom I tell, long yet ere prime was rung by any bell, were seated in a tavern at their drinking, and as they sat they heard a death bell clinking before a body going to a grave. Then roused the one, and shouted to his knave, "Be off at once," he cried, "run out and spy whose body it may be that passeth by, and look thou get his name aright," he cried. "No need, sir, none at all," this boy replied. "They told me that before ye came 2 hours he was, God's name, an old fellow of yours. By night, it seems, and sudden was his dying, flat on his bench, all drunken was he lying, when up there crept a thief that men call Death, who in this country all the people slayeth, and smote his heart asunder with his spear, and all in silence went his way from here. During the plague he hath 1,000 slain, and master, ere ye meet him, this is plain, that it is wise and very necessary to be prepared for such an adversary." "Yea, by St. Mary," said the taverner, "the boy speaks true, for he hath slain this year woman and child and man in yonder town, and page and villain he hath smitten down. I hold his habitation must be there. Great wisdom were it that a man beware, lest he some fearful injury incur." "Yea, by God's arms," replied this rioter. "Is he so perilous a knave to meet? Now will I seek him both by way and street. Upon the bones of God I make a vow. Fellows, we three are one, then hear me now. Let each of us hold up his hand to the other, and each of us become the other's brother, and we will slay this faithless traitor Death. He shall be slain, he that so many slayeth, yea, by God's dignity, ere it be. And so all three of them together made their plight to live and die, each one of them for other, as though he'd been born the other's brother. And in this drunken passion forth they started, and toward that very village they departed, of which the tavern-keeper spoke before. And then full many a grisly oath they swore, and rent the Saviour's body limb from limb. Death should be dead if they discovered him. When they had travelled hardly half a mile, just as they would have stepped across a stile, they chanced to meet a poor and aged man. This old man meekly spake, and thus began to greet them. "May God look upon you, sirs." The greatest braggart of these rioters replied, "Now curse thee, churl, what were a pace? Why, all wrapped up and hidden save thy face? How darest thou live so long in death's defy?" Straightway this old man looked him in the eye, and answered thus: "Because I cannot meet a man by country way or city street, though into India made a pilgrimage, willing to give his youth and take my age, so must I have my age in keeping still, as long a time indeed as God shall will. Nor death, alas, will have my life from me, so like a wretch I wander restlessly, and on the ground, which is my mother's gate, knock with my staff and cry both early and late, 'Mother, beloved mother, let me in. See how I wither, flesh and blood and skin, but yet she will not do me this poor grace, wherefore all pale and withered is my face.' But, sirs, ye lack in common courtesy. that to an aged man speak villainy, yet God be with you, where ye walk or ride. I must be gone where I have need to go. Nay now, old rogue, by God, thou shalt not so, answered another rioter anon. Thou partest not so lightly, by St. John. Thou spake right now of that same traitor Death, that in this country all our comrades slayeth. Have here my word, thou art a spy of his. Then take the worst, or tell us where he is, by God and by the holy sacrament, for truly thou art of his covenant, to slay young folk like us, thou false intriguer. Now, sirs, he answered, since ye be so eager to find this Death, turn up that crooked way. There in yon wood I left him, sooth to say, under a tree, and there he will abide. Not for your boasting will he run and hide. See ye that oak tree, ye shall find him there. God that redeemed mankind save you and spare and better you. Thus spoke this aged man, and toward the tree these drunken rascals ran all three, and there about its roots they found of golden florins, minted, fine and round, well nigh 8 bushels lying as they thought. No longer then the traitor Death they sought, but each was made so happy by the sight of all those florins shining fair and bright, that down they sat beside the precious hoard. The worst of them was first to speak his word. Brothers, he said, take heed of what I say. My wit is great, although I jest and play. Fortune hath found it fit to give this treasure, that we may live our lives in lust and pleasure. Lightly it comes, so shall it melt away. God's dignity, who would have dreamed today that we should have so fine and fair a grace? But could the gold be carried from this place home to my house, or else to one of yours, for well we know that all this gold is ours, then were we in high felicity. But such a thing by day could never be. Men would proclaim us thieves and cause our seizure, might even make us hang for our own treasure. This gold must then be carried hence by night, with secrecy and cautious oversight. Wherefore I say, draw lot among us all, and let us mark the way the lot shall fall, and he that draws it shall, with willing heart and nimble pace, toward the town depart, and fetch in secret wine and bread, and we that stay behind shall guard full carefully this gold, and if our comrade does not tarry, when it is night, we will this treasure carry, wherever by agreement shall be planned. The one held out the lots within his hand, and bade them draw, and look where it would fall, and it fell on the youngest of them all. And so by compact toward the town he started, and scarce a moment after he departed, the one of them spoke slyly to the other. Thou knowest well thou art sworn to be my brother. Now something to thy profit will I say. Thou seest our fellow takes himself away, and here is gold, and that great quantity that shall be portioned out among us three. Nevertheless, if I could shape it so that we should share it all between us two, had I not done a comrade's turn by thee? The other said, But that could never be. He knows we two are here, and guard the gold. What could we do? What wouldst thou have him told? Shall what I say be secret? Asked the first. Then shortly shall the method be rehearsed, whereby I think to bring it well about. Agreed, replied the other. Out of doubt I will betray thee not, as God is true. Now, said the first, thou knowest that we are two, and two of us are mightier than one. Watch when he sits, then go as if in fun, as thou wouldst play about with him, and grip him, and with my dagger through his sides I'll rip him, while thou thou art struggling with him as in play, and see thou use thy knife the self-same way, then all this treasure shall belong to none, my dearest friend, but me and thee alone. Then may we sate our lusts until we tire, and play at dice whenever we desire. And thus these rascals have devised a way to slay the third, as ye have heard me say. This youngest, he that journeyed to the town, within his heart rolled often up and down the beauty of these florins new and bright. "O Lord," quoth he, "if it were so, I might have all this treasure to myself alone. There liveth no man underneath the throne of God that might exist more merrily than I." And so the fiend, our enemy, put in his head that he should poison buy, wherewith to make his two companions die. So forth he goes, no longer will he tarry, unto the town to an apothecary, and prays for poison to exterminate some rats and polecats that have robbed of late his roosts, and he would wreak him, if he might, on vermin that tormented him by night. Then this apothecary answering, "God save my soul, but thou shalt have a thing that let a living creature drink or eat no bigger portion than a grain of wheat, and he shall die, and that in shorter while, by God, than thou wouldst take to walk a mile. This poison is so strong and violent." All on his cursed wickedness intent, this rascal ran as fast as he could fly, bearing the poison to a street near by, and got 3 bottles of a man he knew, and then he poured his poison in the 2, but in the 3rd his own put none at all. For all the night he thought to heave and haul, carrying gold, then he would slake his thirst. And so this rascal, may he be accursed, filled all his bottles full of wine, and then back to his fellows he repaired again. What need is there to sermon of it more? For just as they had planned his death before, they slew him now and quickly. Then the one spoke to the other after it was done, "Now let us eat and drink and make us merry, and afterwards we will his body bury." And so by chance he drank that very minute out of a bottle with the poison in it, and gave his comrade drink when he was through, from which in little time they died the 2. But truly Avicenna, I suppose, wrote never in his canons of such throes and wondrous agonies of poisoning that these 2 wretches had in perishing. Thus died these murderers, of whom I tell, and he who falsely poisoned them as well.